Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you've all been doing really well. Today I want to do a quick overview of Submission Audio's Eurobass 2 sample library for Contact Player and how I've been using it to make demos at home and not have to rely on my rather lousy bass playing and bass production techniques. So this sample library basically features a fully sampled 5-string Warwick bass guitar as either a really well-recorded clean DI, or we've got some amplifier processing built in there as either a clean or a distorted channel. There's also control over a bunch of different playing articulations and a bit of human stank in there with some string noises and some alternate picking adjustments that we can make. So let's hear this thing in a quick little mix. I really hesitate to call it a mix, but what I've done is load in an unmixed drum stem from the latest Ragdoll single Russ, and I've gone through and I've just quickly tracked some guitars on that one. It's all unedited except for these little fades here that you can see. I've really gone to town with the production there, and we're just going to hear it in the context of this mix. It's more like a demo mix or something, I guess a typical demo style thing that I would do if I was just laying down a riff and I wanted to get the idea down. And we'll have a listen to some of the different sounds and then talk through the features. So let's do it. All right, so that is what is going on right there with the plugin. You can see there's a couple of different controls over volume, width, string noise, and the muting noise, as well as the amplifier section. And what's really cool about this is that you can either turn the amp section off and process it with your usual bass chain in your workstation, or you can just use the built-in processing. And I found that the built-in processing sounds fantastic, specifically that distorted sound, because that's always the type of distorted bass sound I try to dial in and really struggle to do, and it's basically baked in to this plugin. So if we go to the piano roll really quickly, you can see that you can just kind of use this as you would any other MIDI instrument. You can go along and plug the notes in, change the velocities. I haven't even changed the velocities except for these little mutes here, but there is a whole section of kind of cool string noises. So you can give it, like I said, that kind of human element in there. And there is a bunch of different key switches here which change the different playing articulations from kind of really wide and open to soft and muted. And you can hear, in this case, these notes are kind of like a just dead djenty style mute. If I solo this track, you'll see that this particular note is not going to sound as a low C note. It's just kind of going to be a mute. So let's hear that. So you get that, which is something that, you know, if you were playing this song, you would probably do just naturally as an articulation. But if you didn't have that control in there, it would probably just sound like cabaret, which is not what we want when we're trying to write hard rock and metal riffs and demos. The other thing which I think is super powerful is, like, if we take this particular section of the song where there's a bunch of different just sort of pumping, you know, consistent, what are they, 8ths or 16ths? It sounds like this anyway. And that's totally not the section I was talking about. I wanted this section right here, and I'm going to loop it, because what we can then do is hear how the alternate picking section of the plugin changes the tone. It's basically going to let us either program everything as all downstrokes, which is probably a really unnatural way to play the bass, like all downstrokes, all the same velocity, you know, it just sounds like MIDI, or you can get that kind of nice sort of pumping sound happening, the sound where it almost kind of like breathes when you're playing with alternate picking on a bass guitar. So let's hear the differences there. Which is really nice. Like I said, it gives it that kind of breathing sound that you would normally associate with alternate picking on an instrument like the bass guitar. I should also say Submission Audio make another sample library based around, I think it's a Mark Hoppus bass called Punk Bass, but I'm not going to demo that one in here. I will save that hopefully for another video, or I will feature it in another demo and tell you guys about it. There's also the width control, and while you're playing through a particular track, you'll also see the active key switch tell you what the articulation is on there. So like I said, a kind of quick little overview on there and hearing it in a mix, but I've actually been using this plugin quite a lot. Like, I normally dread having to play bass guitar when I do a demo or something like that, and when I do it's just kind of like, okay, I've gone and like spent a bunch of time writing a riff, I've programmed the drums, I've put a bunch of effort into programming the drums and getting the guitar parts right. I'll even go to the length of like quad tracking my demos just to make it sound good, and then it's like the last thing is always, oh, I better put some bass on it, and you know, it's kind of an afterthought, and it always sounds like an afterthought on my demos, which is a bit of a shame. So I'll then send it off to the guys in the band. It's like, you know, hey, as always, just kind of ignore the bass sound. Don't worry about it too much. When we get to rehearsing it and polishing it up, we'll work on that. Whereas at least now with this, you know, it sounds like a really great processed bass sound, especially with distortion. It's that kind of classic dark glass, really modern sounding, gritty bass, which I always struggle to dial in for myself, and it's in there. You've got the alternate picking articulations, and I mean, it might seem super tedious, like you have to go through a MIDI track and add string noise and do all these kind of things to make it sound more human. But as a compositional tool, you know, those things are really, really handy. Like, would I use this on an album that I'm going to release in lieu of like getting a real bass player to play it? Probably not, but as a compositional tool, it's really, really handy because it just gives you that, like, you know, instant mix sound, the kind of a hit record sound out of the box, as I like to say. And it works in Kontakt, which is basically the industry standard kind of sample library player. So yeah, I hope you guys found this really interesting and informative, and hopefully it gave you like a little bit more insight into how this particular bass plugin works. And you can go and check out my demo of the Cherrytone Son of Yeti and the demo video that I did for Axe FX 3 Firmware 10 to hear this plugin. I was super skeptical about this, and I basically didn't want to like it, but I've been using it on a bunch of my demos. So there you go. Thank you guys for watching. As always, if you haven't yet subscribed, please consider becoming a subscriber and look out for my videos. They're up nearly every day. I have waffled on long enough. Enjoy your day. See you next time.